Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and I would like to talk about a short transit that we have, and the moon is releasing from a square to Pluto. But I would like to talk about the moon Pluto hard aspects versus the moon Pluto easier aspects. And so, whether it is in transit or in the natal chart or coming up in the symmetry or composite chart, relational chart, um, when the moon is benefic, let's begin with the benefic. When the moon is benefically aspected Pluto, there can be growing with love, okay? Because the moon is nurturing and loving, and Pluto is depth and authenticity. So one or both people could be exposed to their authentic emotions in a way that is loving and receptive. And so this is an aspect where people genuinely grow and develop safe attachment, okay? Safe attachment pattern, if they do grow, okay? Even with the easy aspects. And so now you can join these two and think about the moon as nourishing and Pluto as authenticity, but also uncovering, unveiling. And you think about the hard aspect, then you think about a situation where there is a crisis point around the giving and receiving nourishment and emotions as a form of power, okay? So this is where we would get, one could be overwhelmed emotionally by the other, and we would get a situation of emotional blackmail, emotional abuse, indirect behavior, especially now with Mars in Cancer. It can be passive aggressive, and somebody suddenly showing up in a way that is abusive. And the hard aspect can simply mean that somebody plays on somebody's emotion, and that could be both sides, or psychological violence in a way that is a bit hidden, and it's around nourishment, okay? So it's around caregiving, so care and control, and so on and so forth. The hard aspects, unless you have something that mitigates that, then either you want to lean on, okay, the easy aspects, inviting the easy aspects to curate that, but the hard aspects is absolute crisis, where if there's nothing that mitigates that, the purging perhaps needs to happen, but it's going to lead to separation. And so right now we just exited a transit when Pluto was squared by this moon, and the moon was revealing, but also there could be emotional extortion, or there could be even revealing of psychological extortion or abuse in caregiving, okay? All of that. That has been going on. Okay, the energies in the air have been quite heavy, quite dreadful, and not so supportive. Now, you want to check if you genuinely have, let's say, the trine and the sextile, and that was really a one-time thing that both parties learned from and are genuinely not going to do it again. Then you could say, okay, we grew from that, because they're going to be hard aspects, okay? They're going to be transits, they're going to be stuff, okay? However, if you look at either your natal chart or a synastry chart or a composite chart, and you seem to have this aspect with no remediation, okay, then this is where that could be red flag. And I want to say that this could be a red flag for your relationship. So both of you, whether it's working relationship or even parenting, okay, just like shit happens, okay, like really shit happens. And instead of tagging one person, let's say psychiatrically or psychologically or one not, uh, the best is to reach out and manifest different relations where you separate from that dynamic and you see it as a dynamic and invite in the trine, invite in the sextile. Okay? Because before astrology, all we would have is psychological understanding, and then we would get a person that is nice to everybody, and then their child is suffering tremendously because nobody believes the child because that person is so congenial, okay, and so nice and so on. Um, and then, but astrologically, they could be a synastry work at work there, and instead of blaming either of the parties, okay, when it's parental relationship is more difficult, yes, but instead of blaming either of the parties, saying, okay, there is this dynamic that's going on, and try to invite in the caregiving and the emotional nourishment that's actually nourishing. Okay, so one transit or one planetary skies is not suffice to say something is deadly wrong. Um, However, you don't want to give that thing too many chances before you leave, because Pluto and the Moon are very, very powerful, transformative, and if that is not happening in a trine or sextile, okay, then without blame, and it's difficult because it's emotional, okay, without blame, without shame, when I must, do the purging and let go and invite in the trine, the sextile. Now the thing with the moon, right now moon is squaring Pluto, okay, releasing from the square to Pluto. As it ingresses to Sagittarius, it will trine Pluto. It will sextile Pluto. So 2 days from now, we get a chance to have the energy of the sextile. And then you're going to want to watch, okay, what's going on. So it's not the end of the road if it's one incident, but you're going to want to watch that doesn't return again, even in the hard aspects. Okay? Very, very important. And with the sextile, you can manifest, or you can do a ritual to call on the sextile energies between the moon and Pluto. And if you have, let's say, natal chart where you have the hard aspect, then whenever there is a sextile, whenever there is a trine, you can call on this energy, or you can call on a synastry, a transit or a talisman where the trine or the sextile energy is captured. It's going to help you remediate that and feel safe in being vulnerable, because one of the most important things in more intimate relations, even friendships, is to feel safe being vulnerable. Okay, let alone, if you go to psychologists or stuff like that, but feeling safe being vulnerable is so important, and this is why synastry is important. If you have synastry where you have hard aspect moon Pluto, and you go to therapies and you have it with your therapist, okay, it's going to be very difficult to receive care, okay, and for both of you, going to be very difficult to see what is going on, what's the underlying thing, because it's a crisis that exposes that, rather than something happens and you're vulnerable about this, and then you get a warm hug. Okay, so essentially, if something is bugging you now, then the good thing is to call on the trine, to call on the sextile, and let that energy remediate for this energy. What we have working in our favor, Jupiter, planet of optimism, worldview, but also children, is sextiling Chiron in Aries. Okay, and Mars is in the moon, the sign of the moon. So, and the moon is in Mars sign. So we get an opportunity to have an optimistic resolution, because oftentimes we get stuck. We don't want, also when I give you advice, okay, I don't want you to get advice and say, oh, it's nothing, when it's a ton of red flags that you should be out of these relations yesterday, and try to pave the path for freedom, to exit violence, regardless, okay, if you're which side of you are of the equation. And I also don't want you to say, I don't want to tell, okay, this relationship is doomed, they're showing red flags, the this, the that, okay. People do grow, okay, people do grow, and it's going to be, in many cases, the synastry, the composite, the compatibility of the moons, the level of growth between you two, regardless of what type of relationships, and additional of astrological magic, okay, the moon sextile Pluto talisman, or moon sextile Pluto, when moon is well aspected and Pluto is direct. And I will try to see, when moon is well aspected, Pluto direct, when will I have a good talisman for sextile or for trine, and I will let you know, because this can be absolutely great if people, let's say you even, your age group is the age group that has Pluto hard aspect to your moon. I talked about outer planets and hard aspects in the natal chart, and age gap, okay? If you talk about more intimate relationships or committed relationships, you have to pick your battles. Sometimes it's the intergenerational gap that you're dealing with, which can lead to power issues, but sometimes even that is better than age of consent. To those who misinterpret, it's not what I'm talking about. Okay, just to say, okay, with all the normalization of pedo rings, then, to make it clear, this is a will and consent channel, and so sometimes, okay, for to have good aspect between the personal planets to the outer planets is more important than the age gap, because your power relations would be better even if age gap occurs than if there are hard aspects that you don't have mitigation for, okay? And that's something that not many people know or understand. At the same time, I cannot tell you what the experience of working with talisman to remediate that. And talisman can be great if you were born with such aspect in your natal chart. Perhaps the talisman can help you be more independent of people and have your relationships based on, wanting to be together, not just based on need or moon needs. Okay, there's nothing wrong with moon needs. And they're very important, the most important when you make compatibility considerations, to follow Lada Dumcheva's course. But definitely, if you have a natal hard aspect to the moon with Pluto or outer planets, then this is where you might want a talisman, because that talisman can both attract the correct partner to you, okay? Just like Venus talismans can attract. Okay, first talisman I bought was Venus, and it had a Venu Rahu, okay? And suddenly I began to notice the conjoining of Venus and Rahu, but also the moon and Rahu, and I said, oh, I like that. I like that in my life, okay? And so that is another energy that draws in, okay, for the desired energy. So Pluto, good aspect to moon, which is the 30 degrees or the 120 degrees, and that can assist you for growing with love, okay? And when you grow with love, you will grow into a situation where even if you're the victim of emotional abuse, you can find in yourself a space of self-loving, that you care less about what happened, And that can, the side effect of that can be forgiveness, but it's a side effect of this process where you care less about what happened because you meet your needs. You care. It's not just self-care. You are in situations where self-care is happening. Another way would be to work with the good moon talisman, and that depends on your moon. So both moon in Taurus could be okay. If Venus is in good placement for you and is benefic of sect, then you could try the Venus Cancer talisman, Venus Moon Cancer talisman, and that I really love that one, but also the Moon Taurus, and that can support the moon, okay, and it's still, this one will not avoid for the situation, okay, to happen necessarily. The moon Pluto, or calling on the moon Pluto trine, that yes, because the moon Pluto can be the situation where if in the past you ran into a crisis situation, into a loop, person was gaslighting you, person was this, person was that, now you run into situations with both you and that other person, regardless of the relation type, are like, yes, that was emotional extortion, I was really being inconsiderate, and they have the emotional capacity not to do it again. Okay, that's the power of the sextile and the trine. You grow with love. And suddenly there's a person that's growing from this crisis, and also if you're recovering from the hard aspect situation, okay, emotional abuse that can be take tremendous toll on the psyche, then it's good to curate yourself with the moon talismans and change also for your perception that you can give, that there's not emotional trigger, you don't go back to the past. For you understand, okay, that was really silly behavior, or maybe that was bachelor behavior or whatnot, and then you move on, and there's two people moving on, because you don't go back to the past, okay, where you think, okay, right now you have emotional trigger to when relationship was abusive, and you respond from that, but you say, okay, that was absolutely not okay, but you go forward. If you have indeed the sextile, the trine, to back it up, okay, so you will see it, and and again, the moon hard aspect in Pluto can be a time in your relation, so with yourself, that emotions are less, there's a friction, there's an emotional friction, okay, and especially now that the moon is in Scorpio, moon is in full, and the Mars is in the moon sign. So if you're past this and your relation is okay, it's very likely, I don't want to sound too promising, it's very likely that things are sailing smoothly and you're on the right direction. So when I will have good election to do moon Pluto sextile or moon Pluto trine, which could be even the moon Uranus. Ooh, yeah, but I didn't catch, Pluto was retrograde when I did the moon Uranus on Beta per se. That could be a fantastic one, but I will try to catch, okay, good moon Pluto talisman, and to make perhaps some honey so that it's preserving itself, and maybe some rocks from where I live. But we'll see, okay. Another way to get you this type of energy, you could go to astroseek.com and you can look for charts where there is, and this is an old Lada Duncheva trick. Basically, when I want to complement something from a chart, I go over a chart that has that. So you could look for celebrities with moon sextile Pluto, moon trine Pluto, and with this chart, you check that Pluto is well aspected, that moon is well aspected, and you take this chart and you print it and you walk with this. Okay, it's like a talisman. It doesn't harm the person. Okay, it's just you carry in this energy that has the timestamp. Okay, just like I do a lot of my astrology in astroseek.com, because Peter, the guy that founded astroseek.com, he has a timestamp with Pluto trine Venus. And so my entire relational outlook completely changed when I began to do the relational charts in astroseek.com, because I have moon opposite Pluto. Okay? So I naturally I saw the crisis point, and the challenges and this, and I'm very Venusian, so I'm not into this deep crisis. Okay, I'm not a Scorpionic Plutonian. I have stellium in Scorpio, but I have also the Sun and Venus in Taurus, and I want my relationships to be pleasurable, okay, to be joyous, and safe, and so on. So it was very difficult for me to see optimism in relationships, and then the person that brings the timestamp of the Pluto trine Venus suddenly would have different perspective, the entire energy, just because I was doing the astrology in the website of a person with this chart. His entire energy is in the site, okay? So those are ways in which you can replenish for missing energy. With the moon, this is so important because it's your emotional self, okay? And you could seem like you're losing it, and nobody understands what is happening to you, and it's like you're loved, everything is okay, but nobody understands what is happening to you. Another thing that can happen right now is the profound, as moon releases from Pluto, the profound emotional understanding of yourself, profound authenticity around your needs, but also your vulnerabilities, kind of, profound ways and realizations of what was your internal state, because there's a mirroring effect that happens, but it's a bit of a crisis. There's an ouchie point, okay, to this transit. Of course, if God forbid somebody like really mistreated you and they're not growing, then the release can assist you, especially with Mars and Cancer, to break up, to separate, and to make sure it's safe for you to walk out, so you don't stay in situations that emotionally abusive to you. Okay, so if you begin to care for yourself and somebody tries to bring you down, to challenge that, you take your confidence down, your emotional confidence, to play on your feelings, you say, I don't want it anymore. Okay, this could be like the straw that broke the camel's back, where you move out of these old relational patterns or emotional patterns, and into places where you're emotionally safe, even if it is with yourself. Okay, emotionally nourished, even if only with yourself. So you could now have this buffer when Jupiter is sextiling Chiron in Aries, where your worldview, your mindset is changing, but in harmonious way. Even though the event is a crisis, there is an inner responsiveness that is not necessarily a reactionist so much, or not acting out of the emotional trigger, but rather make a response. So even when you separate, you say, okay, you desire this behavior, no, or if that has been the case, okay, so you're more emotionally stable when you make this decision and understand, okay, my emotional well-being and consistency around my emotional well-being is more important to me than to be in a relationship, okay, which is a standard you need to set, yes, in order to be in a healthy relationship. It's just saying, my well-being, your well-being, more important, it is Shabbos, than our togetherness, okay? So you're not in destructive connection, but actually in situation where you take care of each other, of one's own well-being, and can connect, from that place. definitely what's being exposed right now. Okay, so as Moon is coming to the in conjunct with Neptune, what's being exposed right now, if there was any ideation in the sense that one is dependent emotionally on to be saved by another, or to be, um, you know, we think somebody is his savior, okay? Then there could be, for some relations, a rude awakening. Now, if you have that emotional buffer within yourself, and if other party is not, it's not abusive dynamic between you two, then it's not such rude awakening. It's like it's something you're aware of that you gotta have yourself. But if something was too reliant on being saved, okay, codependency, and I don't mean interdependency, I mean dependency to the level you cannot be, okay, yourself without another, then you are called in to be yourself. You're supported, but you're called in to stand in yourself emotionally, even if it's, a bit more challenging. You will find in right relationship, yes, it's you're welcomed. Okay, you are welcomed, and even if the challenges, you're still welcome, still wanted, and it's not. It's not to make you feel. There is genuine desire that you will feel wanted, accepted, and for real, okay, in the connection, and that is yes, important to keep in mind. Another blessing that this transit can bring is indeed if you've had inner emotional patterns that made it difficult for you to receive care, or to show care, then this is a transit where you might assist you to correct this. Okay, there's crisis point, and then you're aware of that inner pattern within you, and then perhaps hopefully you can communicate it better. So people you will be seen and felt more, and people not have to guess, okay, and vice versa. So that's the Pluto moon. In 2 days we'll have the moon sextile in Pluto, Sagittarius, way lighter energy. So if you've been feeling like, why is it so emotionally frictional, then that was the moon applying to square Pluto, and in conjunct Neptune, and this friction where the moon is also ruling Mars, that Mars is slowly applying to oppose Pluto. Okay, so it's gonna be a smoother sail, and in 2 days even smoother sail, because moon is going to leave its fall, which is Scorpio. So there is what Victor would call the mutual deception right now, when the moon is Scorpio in the sign of Mars and the Mars in the sign of the moon. Why mutual deception, not mutual reception? Because both of them are at fall. So everyone down. Now, if you have generally good friendships and relations in spirit and or in matter, please take lightly these few days. It's a very revealing transit, but if generally your relationship been good and be good for a couple of years, or they be good for a couple of months, and overall the line was emotional growth, okay, it's okay. It's building up, okay. Okay, it's not that red flag thing. It's not that narc abuse thing. It's not. She's not the crazy hoe. Okay. Okay, calm down. Okay, the moon is in Scorpio. Every month the moon's gonna be in Scorpio, and and now the Pluto where it's at. So it's going to begin with the square to Pluto, and from now on we're gonna feel the moon in Scorpio lighter, because it started with the square to Pluto. And so, but I want us all to hold space for the last degrees of the cardinal signs: Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer. These guys have Pluto hard aspecting their ascendants okay? Sun or moon, whatever they have there, whatever you have there, for a while now. And Mars is going to be do the Mars dance on their either on or squaring or opposing their ascendant, and especially for those who were born at night. So let us pray for the last degrees of cardinal signs, people, because they need it. Okay, and I'll see you in next video. Bye bye.